Dear
Copperoni.
Today I play Disco Elysium.
But Disco Elysium? Isn't it wacky?
Yes, that's one word you could employ out of the armada of adjectives to depict and demean the mediocrity of this game. Or so I would if I were an art cop, but regrettably I'm just a humble sorry cop, so...
Sorry.
Disco Elysium came out in... I thought I wrote it down.
Disco Elysium role-playing video game was released in October 2019, following with the final cut in 2021. It was developed by ZAUM or ZAUM. ZAUM translates from Russian as for the mind.
Wish I actually had a voice actor with deep and comely tone for my thoughts.
Do not apologize, they will have no choice but to enjoy it.
In character creation, I decided to throw all the points into the intellect and the leftovers in psyche. So my Copo was a talkative genius with clumsy noodle arms who can fall dead from the slightest puff of wind. But he will make sure to do it dramatically, with his signature being drama. The game about alcoholic detective begins in, you guessed it, a cosmic abyss where you, ancient reptilian brain, and your limbic system have a heart-to-heart conversation.
Isn't it wacky?
With it being over, I found myself in a new kind of nightmare. A reality. Now, a full-blown amnesia with a complete loss of personality is one of the oldest tropes in video game storytelling, and it's understandable. Amnesia is the easiest and most effective way to level the protagonist and the player in terms of what they know. Though it is overdone and somewhat annoying, in defense of Disco they handled it pretty well, since mental illness is a persistent topic in the game and the consequences of amnesia and characters' past keep echoing throughout the story, not to mention alcohol and drug abuse. Usually in games I take my first playthrough seriously. For me that's the only one that worth remembering and the only one that truly matters. So imagine my surprise when I reached for a tie on turned off ceiling fan just to have a fatal cardiac arrest.
Actually, you don't need to imagine that.
Okay, am I dead from trying to grab a tie?
Cop suffers final heart attack at Detective Lieutenant
What?
of the RCM.
Seriously?
Australia.
So by canon, my inept genius haven't even managed to leave a room and passed away, with the biggest achievement being discovering his left shoe. When I finally succeeded in securing my existence from being terminated by inanimate objects, I met my partner, Kim Kitsuragi. I presented myself as Raphael Ambrosius Cousteau, which, weirdly enough, the name you could invent for yourself if you fail conceptualization check, not succeed for some reason. This silly pseudonym I've been using until I learned my real name, which took a long time. Kim is your sidekick and he follows you like a shadow throughout the whole investigation. He's not overpresent, he's rarely spoken, a couple of times I even forgot he was with me, and yet he plays an important role. In contrast to Harry's sporadic nature, Kim is rational, methodical, and professional. He acts as sort of a crutch for Harry to lean on to, metaphorically speaking, when his mind is sliding off the rails. Also, their relationship builds gradually. At first Kim supervises Harry reluctantly out of the necessity, but later on builds a genuine respect for his unorthodox approach. For example, you can nag at a random woman in front of a bookstore to give you something to do, until you have convinced her that she has a missing husband who needs to be found without a delay. And crazy enough, later you find his drunken corpse on a boardwalk. Or at some point Harry is convinced there is something extremely important behind a door in the kitchen, basing it purely on the fact that it is azure colored,
making Kim unexpectedly skeptical.
But later on you find there is a hidden passage murderer have used, and finding it helped to establish his motive. By the end there was a genuine sense of camaraderie between those two, at least this is how it went in my original playthrough. Also, you could be a racist asshole who bullies Kim the entire way, I did try that on my second run, and it was gut-wrenching experience. Kuno is another memorable character.
Kuno doesn't fucking care.
He's a little piece of shit. He's like the worst case scenario of a street kid you can imagine, which is both entertaining and sad to look at. There was an option to punch him at one point, and of course, being of high moral standards as I am, I chose to remain peaceful.
Good, sire. It had nothing to do with your constitution and a tendency to die upon interacting with the physical realm, as far as the rest of the world is concerned.
As it turns out, being nice wasn't a very effective strategy.
Kuno turned you into his prison, bitch!
From the beginning, I were trying to figure out as much about my character and my surroundings as possible, so whenever there was a chance to learn something, even if I had to come clean about the amnesia, I took it. Some of those questions were, what is money? What is romance? Or saying something like, you seem smart, I need someone to give me a lowdown on this reality we're in.
This reality?
She pulls her hood closer around her neck.
Yes, reality is your side case. An experimental side case.
To my surprise, most of the complete strangers, instead of dialing the closest psychiatric facility, were relatively forthcoming, not even mentioning what kind of a trooper Kim was for being able to hang around Harry for days on straight. But not the Harry's own precinct. Oh no, those jackasses were the most useless. Calling them on the radio turned out to be nothing but humiliation. From almost half an hour conversation, the only information I could pull out was my name, Dick Mullen.
Did he lose his memory along with his fucking badge?
The man in the background sounds like he's losing his patience.
Who lost his badge? Dick fucking Mullen. Who do you think?
Which turned out to be false. It was a name of a fictional character.
Based on how they reacted to my badge problem,
Super Copy lost his badge. He lost his what now? His badge. He lost his goddamn fucking badge.
I've decided to omit my loss of a gun.
Ask him. Ask him if he's lost his gun too.
Everything else I told them truthfully, even going as far as calling a Lazareth and talking to the best thing they had for a psychiatrist, but finding zero help whatsoever, only to be met with ridicule and apathy. I'm guessing it's some kind of commentary on the difficulty for a mentally struggling person to find support, even when they actually trying to get better, or it might be just for laughs, you never know. Even though I never actually became a hobocop, I sure looked like one at the beginning, asking people for change and collecting glass bottles. It was a bit disappointing to find that there is no repercussions or any kind of difference for running around and speaking to strangers without clothes. You would expect them to react in some way, but none of them did. I picked what to wear mostly based on stats.
+1 electrochemistry -1 saver fare equals the net worth of 0.
So off the pants go. It was amusing to see the evolution of style as I progressed. From drug addict homeless man to almost a proper cop, following with a sharp turn to a drama queen in a silken robe with slick ceramic boots, and finishing off with a full-blown futuristic, impenetrable exoskeleton. I'm not a big fan of how they handled clothes overall, because it doesn't work well with the other system, and I mean the white checks. You have no choice but to abuse it as the walking wardrobe. Basically, every time the chances are not at max 97%, you have to leave the conversation, rummage through the whole inner wardrobe, put the things that give you the needed bonus, go back to the person, do the check, get back to the clothes you were wearing. It feels unnatural and gets increasingly annoying as the game goes along and you acquire more and more items. One solution to fix this game design flaw would be refusing clothing stats whatsoever, making them more of a cosmetic item. Then maybe adding situations where NPCs would acknowledge player style. Of course, keeping the objective means, like protective purposes of armor or better grip with gloves. This approach, though, makes the game a bit emptier. Another option would be adding a delay before the stats of an item kick in, let's say 30 in-game minutes. This would discourage a lot of players from abusing the stat system, but also might make them less interested in experimentation.
Which just means less willing to change items.
There might be a better solution I'm not seeing right now, but hey, that's all I got. While exploring at my first day, a big chunk of my time was spent in so-called doomed commercial area. I pretended to be an exorcist to superstitious bookshop owner, which was pretty easy thanks to my drama skill.
You flatter us, my liege.
Also trying to swindle her for some money, but by the time I was finished, she closed her shop.
Spoiler alert, she didn't pay either way.
When I left the shop, it was dark. Despite my best efforts to collect 130 real to pay for the damages and have a place to sleep, I barely scrambled 21. And when all my hope was lost, I found Joyce. Dios mío, a liberal. Rich bourgeois woman who handed me the exact 130 real, just like that. On the next day, I was determined to cut the body down from the tree. It's hilarious how this, what appears to be a simple step, became a huge hiccup in my investigation. I immediately refused an option of shooting it down out of fear that Harry will somehow find a way to end up with a bullet in his stupid body. The only other way left was to ask the help from the Union, which required for me to adopt advanced race theory from the giant Polynesian man.
Pinkness is a racial quality that has to be earned through centuries of advanced ballistic warfare and cultural domination that the Grad people have undergone for drinking alcohol and smoking the degenerate tobacco herb, and for eating potato.
What do you think about this?
I think this racist is better than the last, but the next racist will be the really good one.
How do you know there will be a next racist?
There always is.
And I had this racist crap floating in my thought cabinet practically until the end of the game. Finally, I got to the Union boss called Everard. Even though there is close to non-combat in Disco Elysium, talking to this walrus of a man felt like I have reached a boss at the end of a dungeon. What the fuck? Why am I dying?
The chair you're sitting on has got to be the most uncomfortable chair in the world.
I'd like to set your mind at ease about one other matter. Your lost gun.
His slug-like lips move, but all you hear is an echo. Lost gun, lost gun.
Please don't
lost
fucking
gun.
die.
The world is swallowed by a black hole of fear. Only two words escape its gravitational pull. Lost and gun. You're about to cry, aren't you?
So what? Man can cry too.
You want to cry? God, you're weak.
Mr. Dubois, you don't look so good.
What is this, Mr. Dubois? He keeps repeating. What is he trying to pull here?
It's like a...
You need to cool the fuck down.
It's like a...
Chill.
Level boss in this game. By appearance and by the amount of damage he's doing. I didn't take his bribe because he did appear way too sleazy and manipulative. I refused his help with finding my gun too, thinking I could track it down on my own. And I wasn't really that interested in interviewing him until I heard Drama whispering in my ear.
An excellent opportunity presents itself, sire. You could win the trust of the arch-liar, pretend to play into his hand. Then, should you wish, bend his efforts towards your own.
The thoughts do have an effect of changing your mind sometimes. In this case, it's because the game basically told me that I will have an option to counter-manipulate him and won't just be his henchman until the end of the game. I did one task for Everard, opening a door with the key he gave me. It remains unclear how it benefited him, because the owner of the door doesn't even notice it, unless you point it out. My best guess would be that Everard wanted us to give him problems for looting the corpse, because I eventually caught him with the ceramic armor, but it's kind of a long shot to plan out. The autopsy scene is one of my favorites. It was satisfying, it was nice to go through something methodically and feel slightly more like a professional rather than a giant buffoon. Well, not to say it didn't get weird. Stroked his hair.
The stench is suffocating. Strands of dark brown hair start sticking to the latex of the glove, like thread off a rag doll's head. More hair sticks to the glove. Hair off the rain-soaked head of a dead man. There are bumps and dips on the skull below. An alien landscape. There, dead man. You were someone's child. It's all over now.
Isn't it wacky?
There, baby.
The lieutenant watches you in silence.
With my shit perception, it was impossible to completely finish the autopsy, so we decided to put the corpse into the ice bear fridge I found at the doomed commercial area. The other side objective I had for the whole day was my need.
The need for speed.
It was the first thought of the day, how could I ignore it? I knew that Kuno was my best shot at getting the dope, but I needed to succeed an empathy check.
He's on your crime scene. What's going on?
God damn it.
What's going on? He's an
Okay, 72%, come on. It should work now.
It's not
Yes,
Kuno.
finally.
It's Kuno-esque.
Kuno, listen to me. He's just trying to control you. We gotta get you out of here.
It's okay. The pig's trying to pit us against each other. Not gonna let him do that.
So it wasn't right. Ah, come on.
What's going on? He's an ungovernable youth on your crime scene, throwing around incendiary language, trying to push your buttons.
It's like fucking playing in the casino. You just have to bet and bet and bet until you
Fuck does Kuno care?
recover.
What's going on?
What
He's
the
an
fuck?
ungovernable youth.
Like if it fails for forever, unless there is some other way.
You were too pushy last time. Think this through.
I'm glad she's out of our hair. She's fucked up.
She's not fucked up. Everyone's...
Wrong move. But he's whispering still.
Oh.
You haven't lost him.
Remember when you tried to get Kuno to hook you up? We can get on that now.
Throughout the whole day, I was putting every skill point into empathy to make the white check refresh so I could try again. By the time it worked, my empathy was higher than my primary skill, and the day had ended. While playing through Disco Elysium, I started saving up one skill point for emergency refreshes of white checks. I think many people ended up doing the same. It's because this secondary property of a skill point becomes as important, if not more important, than spending a skill point on building your character. It's also reinforced by the dead ends in tasks, when the only way to complete them would be battering through the single possible white check with a single possible skill until you get it right. Like the situation with Kuno, like filament for 2mm hole that you must take out from ice cream maker, or for Harry to put 2 and 2 together and finally figure out where Ruby is hiding using Shiver's skill. So if your goal is to complete tasks, you have to become more of a jack of all trades rather than specializing in something singular. Which again is odd and not a very satisfying way to go around this. It could have been solved with the more branching in tasks, so players would have more choice in what skill to use and what skill to upgrade, or with a different system for refreshing the white checks altogether. My third day began on full steam.
And by that you mean a nose full of speed.
Amphetamines opened my eyes, literally. I started seeing things I completely missed before. Harry found footprints identifying all Hardy Boys by shoe size and finding the 8th one, figuring out it belonged to a truck driver based just on worn out right sole, which is a godly level of deduction. Did a visual calculus on the window, had a sophisticated admiration of Kim's motor carriage, naming its insides like it was an alphabet. 2 valves per cylinder, hydraulic valve lash adjustment.
Yes, that's right. I'm very impressed that you know these things.
He stares at you in surprise. I'm impressed too. Found a stash of guns, crawled into victim's mouth and found their bullet, which turned the investigation on its head. Solved the drug trafficking case for Joyce, handled missing person case, established dominance over Hardy Boys, got to a key witness, wrapped, Sherlock Holmes defense, found a secret pinball passage, and finally, and most importantly, nailed the karaoke song. It was by far the most productive day. Speed for Harry acted like pills for Bradley Cooper and Limitless, and the funniest thing is, there's no downside. There's no overdose or withdrawal. You even get experience for the first try. So taking drugs, smoking and drinking in Disco Elysium is great for you. In terms of gameplay, it's nothing but advantage, even though writing in the face of volition is trying to say otherwise.
There are massive downsides. It's a potent neurotoxin. You're turning yourself into a frayed idiot.
Now, I'm not a big moralist guy, it's a game for adults and you don't have to tiptoe around every edgy corner, but it still makes me wonder, was that intentional, unintentional, or simply something they didn't have time to finish? At the end of the day, I sent Kim to drive the corpse to the morgue, then checked if there's anything I could clean up before going to bed. There was a shipping container that you can try to open with RHETORIC, which seemed like one of the Harry's eccentric stunts. Persuade the door to open? The fuck?
Why are you even trying to open a door with rhetoric?
Because getting physical wasn't an option.
Because what wasn't an option?
Oh, it was out loud. Using my body over my wits.
Now is not the time to get philosophical, detective. You can do that after hours.
This time I succeeded, and as it turns out, it was a person locked from inside. So it was actually the right thing to do. Again, but not any person, a mega rich light painting guy. What the fuck? Why there's no Kim with me right now? The light bending part was Harry's hallucination, but the money part was very real, so I took an opportunity to swindle him for some, or as the game well put it, come up with an investment plan.
These ultra-liberal types love losing huge sums of money on ludicrous proposals. Ergo, you should come up with a plan that's totally dead in the water.
And being as great as I am, I critically succeeded at failure.
Congratulations. You've somehow managed to fail at failing, which means, in a strange way, that you've succeeded.
It raised me 100 real and I went to sleep a very happy drug addict. At day 4, Harry decided to form a committee of
La responsabilité.
It's a moralist thing. Things down here are a mess. Someone really ought to do something about it. First, though, you and some other moralists should probably form a committee to decide whose job it is. Seems like a waste of fucking time. Throughout the playthrough I was leaning toward moralism more, especially when your other options are fascism, communism, and that thing. Why am I so poor?
Because of the taxes. G-Man's got his jam-covered sticky fingers in your pocket.
No matter what political agenda you pick, Harry will make a parody out of it without attempting to. He's a goof, it's just his character's nature, he mocks them by misinterpreting or going to the extremes. With moralism though, and its main theme being centrism, luckily it's rather hard to radicalize something like the balance.
Oh sure, I can do that! If you want that, I can avoid taking a stand!
Please don't turn him into a moralist. I don't even know what to say to that.
1 minute later. It's time to compromise!
So being a moralist is probably not as entertaining as taking other agendas, but I do value a small satisfaction of setting Harry's wretched life on a slightly straighter path. I did arrest Miss Disco Dancer on a roof, aka Clasier Amandieu, aka Katarinzina Alazie, aka Anouk Meir Smith, or whatever her name is. I did it exactly for that reason. She was too deceiving and it felt like she would slip away at any moment with the valuable information. So I figured it would be way more convenient to have her in custody, and if any new information related to her comes up, I could question her through a radio, but it wasn't the case. If you arrest her, she is gone forever, along with Kim until the end of the day, without any benefit whatsoever. More so, she might have later been taken by a moral intern and possibly executed for her corporate spy crimes. So you're also an asshole. I did like the moment of arrest though. Sometimes thoughts start interacting with each other, like arguing about something, and this scene was the most memorable example of that.
I have bad news for you.
What?
You know these guys? Who? Me? Yes, you. He's talking about you, you boring stiff. You too. Me? What did I do? I'm merely a master thespian. These guys are compromised. She's got them singing along to her tune. The little bleeps and bloops you trust for info, you can't trust them anymore.
But then you notice Volition being over-paranoid, so you can't trust it as well.
She definitely called the cops. That was task complete. It could not have been a lie. That is impossible. Oh God, that was a lie too. Who made the call then?
What?
She did, of course.
Volition, come on. So you have to choose based on your assessment alone, and the most annoying thing, you won't be able to know if it was right or wrong because there is no conclusion to her story. With Kim gone for the whole day, I decided to do something not case related to stall time. I found a couple of teens trying to set up a meth lab in the abandoned church.
A cause most holy.
This was perfect. I was running dangerously low on speed since I was eating it like candy. It was only natural for me to help those young entrepreneurs with their promising business plan. For that, I had to convince a crabman, some golem character who lived in the ceiling, which was easy, and a programmer lady who was a tough cookie and I had to leave her for another day. With Kim gone, degradation of Harry's character started to catch up rapidly.
It's clear you like the hard stuff, Brota.
So endurance is my lower intestine?
Lower intestine? The term is metabolic and circulatory system.
Okay, but what's the hard stuff?
Fascism, Brota.
Oh boy.
Who does your gut tell you is the source of Revachel's problem?
Financiers?
Yes, them. But also women.
Women?
Women. Men of war. You don't like them. They're insane. Their idiocy needs to be scrubbed off this world with rubbing alcohol. Woo men need to go back to the fucking kitchen. That's what fascism boils down to. The rest is also important. But the main thing is that woo men need to know their place.
But I'm a feminist.
Feminists? No, it can't be. Not you. No one believes this.
Did you know you can forget thoughts? Go to your thought cabinet and forget all about feminism.
Whoa. I like how tutorial just telling me go fascist. I also helped the cryptozoologist guy in the search for his insulindian phasmids, basically a fantastic beast. I was highly skeptical about its existence and did it solely for XP and to have something to do. It's just how the games are. You either do the quest and get something in return, or refuse it and get nothing. Plus possibly skip any content that might have been there. So it's practically always beneficial to accept, even if you believe it's a waste of time. And as to instantly prove my point, after checking the traps with locusts for cryptozoologists, I got a clue which led me to figure out Kuno's secret project. The City of Rage, the Night City, turned out to be the City of Locusts. Bugtown?
It's not Bugtown, it's the City of Locusts. Locusts aren't just bug shit, They come out of the sky like a fucking shadow. Shit descends.
Making art is a worthy calling. I'm something of an artist myself.
Oh my god, Kuno! He's gonna make you totally lame in like 3 seconds.
By the end of the day, I did manage to recover another piece of futuristic armor by miraculously passing a composure check, pumping speed of course, and using clothing swap trick. And now I had boots, gloves and the chest piece. Even though my initial intent when I stole the boots from the corpse was to sell them, I've changed my plan and decided that the best thing I could do with my weak, frail body is to cover it in complete bulletproof material, so I would become On day 5, I completely lost faith in finding my gun on my own, believing it can't be done. It is true, the only way to find the lost gun is through dealing with Everard. I did another task for him, collecting signatures for a shady construction project. I managed to forge them, although it didn't seem to have much effect. After that, Mr. Kingpin here made an appointment with the person named The Pigs, who had my gun. How he managed to do that, I have no idea.
Oh my god. This is terrifying.
Or how the pigs bought the gun in the first place in such condition. Thanks to my visual calculus, we didn't shoot that cuckoo's nest.
Look closer. The gun, all 3 barrels, red and blue light shining through. It's not loaded.
Go ahead. Pull the trigger, Ardelia.
Suicide back home. Split-second decision. Eat lead, scumbag.
Oh my god.
For a moment there.
I was 80% sure the gun is empty, and still the instinct almost took over.
Yeah, also you are not aiming correctly, Kim.
Back in church business, I finally cracked open the ice maker machine by beefing up my physical instrument skill that I didn't want and taking double doses of alcohol. Yes, my character now also drinks, on top of heavy drug usage and smoking. Then I brought Filament back to Suna and got introduced to a concept of 2mm hole in the world. Whenever there was talk about Pale, I was there to eat up every last bit of detail. I like how at one point I had to sneak up behind Kim's back to talk about it with Joyce, because Kim thinks that learning about Pale will ruin Harry's already fragile sanity. Although this eerie physical phenomenon was largely unrelated to the case, I was simply fascinated by it. This mysterious substance that consumes matter and information, that makes overexposed people extremely nostalgic, or even implanted with someone else's memories, is perfect for inducing existential terror. Oh, and on top of that, it's also all around and slowly growing. So after finding it right under my nose, I was very excited. Harry even turned into a professor or some kind of natural philosopher and genuinely schooled Kim and Suna on the nature of it. Next, it was time to deal with la responsabilité. I convinced Suna to help me to call the coalition warship so I could speak to whoever was on the other end and possibly to the committee itself. Because there was no strong enough transceiver, they decided to use lorries and the horseman statue to form a giant antenna.
Isn't it wacky?
There was a problem with the connection, so I had to move the horse's head.
Ah, shit.
Luckily, it only shortened the amount of questions I could ask. Even with my high empathy, thanks to Kuno, I had pretty iffy chances.
Come on! You can do it, Harry!
This isn't about you.
Jesus.
Not really.
I laid down the facts I knew about the upcoming tribunal, and everything was going pretty well.
Is there anything else the committee should know?
You hear the sound of her pen scratching against paper.
Detective, before you answer that, I urge you to weigh your words extremely carefully.
The lieutenant is afraid you're going to say something too outre.
Now that you mention it, I learned something very strange about the victim in my murder investigation. Yes, I've also discovered an anthroponetic phenomenon here in Martinez. Shit! Yeah, thing is, it is a crazy thing, but I would sound like a lunatic saying that. Should I mention it or not? Yeah, let's not mention it. I think this might be it. No, but I have no idea what he's about to say next here. I have learned something very strange about the victim in my murder investigation.
We are listening. What did you learn about the victim?
Ah, shit! That I didn't know! What the fuck? Ah! Now they'll think I'm even crazier. What the fuck? How am I supposed to know that he would say that next? God damn it. Now it's easier to see the Coalition are all about the bigger picture, and Pale Phenomenon was exactly that. But this is a good thing, because later I learned that if I succeeded, the aerostatic would pick me up and the game would just end. It would have been very abrupt and somewhat unsatisfying ending. Unlike with the Thai ending, I would actually stop my playthrough right there. So me fucking up was the best thing that could possibly happen there. When I cleared all I could possibly clear, I went to Ruby's den. She caught us in some damaging radio aura, which was as painful as Everard's uncomfortable chair. Our dialogue wasn't that important, since I already knew long time ago she didn't kill our hanging boy, so by the end I let her go without attempting to do anything aggressive. If you hear someone say there is almost no fighting in Disco Elysium, not in a conventional sense, Tribunal is the reason why they say that almost. Not to say I did much fighting, I mostly just caught bullets with my body, as to be expected. I've been convinced that I had no ammo, but in fact I had one bullet I didn't know I've picked up in some shack. They had one guy completely covered in that impervious ceramic armor, and just like Master Chief from Halo in Paramount Plus TV show, the other two guys are not big fans of wearing fucking helmets, even though they are about to start a gunfight. Still, the odds were pretty grim. The only chance I had with my non-physical character is beating them in negotiation. I've been crushing the talking part, nailed all the checks, chose everything perfectly, and yet there was no way to win it peacefully. Maybe there is a peaceful way to solve this. Hopefully. Stand there quietly, hope nothing bad happens. Which is fucking annoying, because we softened them up for this.
What's the matter, loincloth? Mouthful of dick. Think I'm gonna fucking spare you?
Shit, this is it. Tell him anything. Tell him you have more information.
Kill me and you'll never find out who killed your colonel. I've been withholding information.
Good. Kill him.
Uh-oh. And I'm fine with that. The way those drunken war criminals are painted, it is entirely believable they would not be convinced by just words and just would go on their way after a small conversation with some drunken cop. The scene of battle, if not the best in the game, it was certainly the most exhilarating. My heart gained an extra beat when it was unfolding. I do like the nature of one frozen frame after another. I think you can do a lot of cool fighting scenes with that, and I only wish it was used more. I also enjoy how thoughts, who usually bicker with each other and fool around, are completely focused here on saving Harry's sorry ass, sort of in a desperate act of self-preservation.
You stare down the barrel of the gun. You see Rude's mask behind it, his eyes in the slit of the helmet, like a camera lens, focusing on you. Absolute destruction. Is there anything we could use to protect this frail body? That gun will tear us to pieces.
I mean, we do have ceramic armor, but not the helmet.
He's drunk. Drunk fighters overcorrect. Move right, he aims further right. Get him to overshoot.
Oh no! Because I refused to shoot first, thinking still I could solve it peacefully, the fight immediately begins from Rude trying to shoot me in the head, but hitting the chest armor.
Heavy drops of rain.
Huh.
Then the sound of dice rolling as the cuirass distributes the shock evenly from plate to plate.
Okay, so chest piece saved me. Even though roll failed.
You got hit. The armor took most of it, but still your ribcage burns.
Okay, the...
Feels like blood is slowly seeping into your lungs.
Will Kim take a shot now?
God, please.
The lieutenant says quietly without trembling. He aims face pale.
He's aiming for the eye slot in Rude's helmet. An extremely difficult shot.
Yeah, no shit. Better to aim for the gun, I think.
He has to. The rifleman will fire at you again. 2 shots ring at once. One from the lieutenant's pistol, and the other from DePaul's. It's aimed at the lieutenant, but it misses. You hear a scream behind you.
Did hit the rifleman? It seems like he did. He actually fucking killed him. This is an insane shot.
Blood gushes from the helmet's eye sockets as Rude staggers back, disoriented. The sounds coming from his helmet are not human.
I'm not sure if it did. It could be the same as with us, like it hit the armor but did a lot of damage. We'll see, I guess. I hope he is dead.
The helmet looks like the face of an ancient god of war, crying blood.
Nice. Then it's turn for me to catch more bullets.
Oh God, watch out. You see 2 cold eyes looking at you through all the smoke and panic, and a pistol raised, aiming at your chest, point blank.
Boy.
Then the man squeezes the trigger.
I'm not Neo, come on. Let it happen. Look him in the eye, or will I waste time by doing this?
A look of happiness. His eyes seem unnaturally bright, shining like stars. Something in the fear must distort him somehow. He is evil, and the end.
Please not the head. It was the head. Of course I get gunned down and die. Sorry, fuck.
Yes, keep talking. Stay awake. Look at me.
The lieutenant pushes down on your wound hard.
But you can't. It's so hard. Your eyelids grow heavy, and the sounds ever more distant. And a cold comes over you. The lieutenant, too, is somewhere far away, almost gone, when suddenly you sense something behind him, a shadow towering. Someone stands there, raising his pistol at him.
Jeez.
The lieutenant does not see it. He's pushing down on your wound with both hands.
What? He went to fucking save me before killing the fucking merc? That's very strange.
No, you say, and hand out your firearm to him. Your hand trembles and your eyes are full of fear. That's all it takes. There is no room for hesitation. The lieutenant moves like a spring unloaded. He grabs the gun from your bloody hand and fires.
This seemed unbelievable to me. The way they placed people in a fight on a screen implies that Courtney is almost point blank already, and for Kim to fall and start doing first aid does seem completely silly. I'm guessing on paper they imagined this scene a bit differently. Also, mercs shooting this close and missing is another problem, but you can count it off on them being drunk, I guess. Otherwise, it's pretty intense scene and I did like it very much. Day 6. Day 7.
You see the lieutenant's familiar shape in the
boy,
orange jacket.
I'm alive.
It turns double.
I was glad to open my eyes because I was thinking it might have been just a long death sequence. And surprise, I got shot in a thigh. Ah, that's why there were no ceramic leggings. The famous Chekhov's quadriceps. Outcome of the fight was pretty grim. Apparently, while I was chatting to my friends from the other side, mercs massacred 5 Hardy Boys, leaving only Elaine in Eugene. And I think Lizzie survived too, at least she wasn't mentioned as a casualty. That's not exactly a win, but at least I still had Kim intact with me, and apparently if you fuck up royally, you get Kuno as your partner. And I rather would not.
Everyone says you started crying in the middle of a firefight and then bled like a pig. I guess that was cool.
Tribunal was pretty much a climax of Disco Elysium, and the 7th day felt like playing through after credits. I'm sure it's intentional to make player feel the apathy, the feeling of loss, and just a general failure. And finding the last piece of armor in a place you can only reach after the Tribunal was particularly ironic.
Mon Dieu! You set it on fire! What kind of a policeman are you?
I'm a fire walker, I walk in the flames.
That's nice. Better somehow.
After some brooding, we got to the last place we didn't check for the possible sniper's nest, the island. And whoop-de-doo, we found the sniper's nest and the killer with the confession sitting there like a wrapped present. Oh yeah, and the Insulindian Phasmid like a cherry on top. The killer, named Iosif Lilianovich Droz, was a stubborn commie who wouldn't let the past go and still thinks himself to be a soldier guarding his outpost. I know at least 2 people like that who count themselves as citizens of USSR and wait for the communists to come back and change their lives. They don't live on isolated islands, but rather in villages or small towns. They are old, full of nostalgic memories, and partially living in the past. These characters do exist in real life, and Mr. Droz is a traced image of them, maybe more delusional and exaggerated, but still hitting the same strings. I also like how the motive stays ambiguous. He observed people of Martinez for like 43 years through a scope of a rifle, growing socially deprived. He spied on Katerina in general, and especially when she was having sex, so there is an angle of a sexual deprivation and perversion as well. There is jealousy mixed up in there, even though Droz tries to deny it. His later rumble falls straight into classification of jealousy. And there is also a political angle, where Droz thinks himself to be a loyal member of a communist party, and Courtney as the enemy soldier sent by capitalists. Even though I know I got the motive out of him, it's still hard to define it compactly, hard to put it in a box, which makes it more complex compared to a lot of detective stories out there, and I guess more realistic, since rarely anything in life is black and white. After we are done, he falls into a stupor, and we decide to leave him there and float back to the mainland, even though he can easily escape the island without even a boat. The shore based on animation is less than 100 meters away. But hey, it's the end of the game, so who the hell cares? It's judging time. Harry's colleagues gather in the village and try to decide what to do with him. Well, mainly Jean. The others are just there for moral support mostly. Sunglasses, suddenly his expression changes and he tilts his head.
I want to call you a teapot, but I'm honestly kind of impressed. No idea where you got all that gear, but there's no doubt in my mind that some bad people are looking for it. Also, you look like a fucking idiot.
The armor? No one else seems to be bothered by it.
Oh, really? They don't seem bothered by it? That's because you're a cop in an exoskeleton.
Yeah, I'm a cop in a goddamn exoskeleton.
Actually, are you? Are you still a cop? There's so much disco going on, it's hard to tell.
Vic, calm down.
This kind of ending felt like reading a result of a personality test.
Then there's the self-flagellation issue. He likes to apologize profusely, making it sound like he's guilty of at least first-degree murder. It's not a good communication strategy for an officer.
Look, there's a discarded milk carton on the floor. Why don't you destroy that, too?
No, I actually feel sorry for the things I've destroyed. Sorry, milk carton.
It's just strange, especially in light of his political views. Detective Dubois is, as you may know, a true blue moralist. He recently attempted to contact a coalition warship in order to assign la responsabilité, which is commendable, but also at odds with his own behavior.
Why is it strange, though, being a moralist and a sorry cop? Like, huh? I think it fits pretty well.
And then there's the motor carriage in the sea, and the drugs, of course. Some kind of anti-radiation drug he uses to induce visions. But despite all this, he is a great detective. One of the best I have seen, in fact. He can talk human beings into telling him everything. And he doesn't stop. In all the time I've spent with him, he has not once stopped pursuing leads, however far-fetched and tangential. He is tireless, madly driven.
As I said, the climax of the story already happened, and this ending by design is underplayed. It doesn't leave on a strong note, but rather fades away. The life sort of moves on with some minor variations depending on your choices in the end. I don't think it's a good ending, but it's not a bad one either, though again I would have preferred more branching, so my decisions would lead me to a certain ending, rather than your decisions are just a score boost in a last dialogue. Also, Killer is still on the island and nobody arrested him. Kim's car is parked next to the hostel and Kim is leaving. I have no idea where they are going, but hey, I'm just a sorry cop, so apparently I am the deranged individual here and raging alcoholic, not Jean. To summarize, I won't say anything new about the writing. It already was praised by like everybody, and I think if it was anything less than brilliant, the game wouldn't have worked. It manages to raise serious questions like drug abuse, corruption, politics, racism, homosexuality, while staying absurd and silly at the same time. Humor is a great antidote for pretentiousness, and I can easily see how Disco could have fallen into that pit without it. The writing is creative, and it tingled my brain just in the right, long-forgotten places, and I love it very much. Okay, but what are the other copper types?
Oh, you know, Apocalypse, Superstellar, the Advanced Interesting Cop, Liquid Shadow Cop. But you're too sorry to say those
Liquid
things.
Shadow.
So, here we go.
The art design is very good. The pictures of skills are disturbing, abstract, and imaginative, which goes well with the whole theme of the game. The art from the thought cabinet is the best thing I saw in a while. It's like a snippet of someone's subconscious imagery when they think about the presented subject. It's just as disturbing, but I couldn't stop looking at it because I was trying to figure out what the hell was going on there. It has this effect of drawing you in for a minute. The funny thing is, you won't even be able to see all the pictures, but only a fraction of it based on the thoughts you chose to develop. The weak part of Disco Elysium for me is gameplay again, for the reasons I already specified and some other little things. It does make sense since it's Zaum's first developed game, and like with The Witcher, it's another example when great storytelling overshadows almost all the problems. And I hope to see more of Zaum in the future. Oh wait, I won't be able to because they fired the core creators.
Surprise, motherfucker!
As I was making this, they have forcefully fired Robert Kurwitz, the lead designer and basically the main creator of the whole thing, Alexander Rostov, the art director, and Helen Hindpier, the lead writer. After some time, Kurwitz files a suit on Zaum, where Ilmar Kompus is largest shareholder of the studio and also executive director. Allegedly, Compos hoped that Zaum and Disco Elysium could be resolved quickly, but Robert Kurwitz owns a right to block such decisions. There is also allegedly a scam that Compos pulled buying some sketches for €1 and reselling it to Zaum for 4.8 million euros. On the other hand, Compos accuses the trio in not working for almost 2 years, creation of toxic environment, verbal abuse, gender discrimination. Not really sure how they managed to do all that while allegedly skipping work for 2 years, but that's the statement. The whole thing is murky and kind of confusing, and we don't get to see the whole picture. The point is, I'll keep my eye on Kurwitz and hope he will be able to find funds and create something new. Doesn't have to be disco, as long as the original creators are working on it. It could be anything really. And as for Zaum, if they somehow pull through it and put out Disco Elysium 2 ignoring the controversy, I would love to borrow it from a good friend and just have a glimpse of what Disco Elysium can be if you suck the vision and talent out of it. How would it look like? I'm very curious. It's like a little art experiment. Very tragic and comical at the same time. Kind of like Disco. And on that note, I'm going to end it here. Great narratively driven RPG, one even might say interactive book. I'm glad I had a chance to experience it, and I'm giving Disco Elysium, everybody knows what you gave to it, it's on your thumbnail. Get the hell out of here, Volition. It's a nice way to end it, alright? Brings the whole thing to a nice closure. What, you want me to just cut mid-sentence and call it a day? Nobody does that. That would be insane. Kim, I must paint this wall and even more beauty to it. And add even more beauty to it.
Huh? He sounds tired of it all.
You and me, Kim. You and me.